How often do you think we find ourselves in a dynamic in our marriage that I'm complaining about something, I'm recognizing something that particularly has to do with my spouse, but yet I'm completely blind to my complicit nature within the very thing I'm complaining about?
I think that in a lot of areas in life, we do that. It takes some eureka and, oh my gosh, how have I been blind to that?
Right. It's like the wife that resents a husband because he's passive in conversations or in situations socially where there's a dialogue going along among couples and he just sits back. But yet she's not even realizing anytime a question is proposed towards him, she answers it for him, perhaps, or she alters what it is he's saying.
Oh, you didn't say that right.
Perhaps, and not even realizing that's what helps cultivate a passivity in him, or a husband that complains about there's a distance and they don't feel connected. But anytime she comes to move in close to him, he shuts it down.
He gets uncomfortable with it.
In some ways that he's not even realizing. And so I think it's important for us to realize we maintain oftentimes the very thing we say we want to change. And we're not even aware of it.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we're aware of it and we just keep doing it anyway.
Sometimes I think there really are ways that we do that we just for a period aren't aware. Then hopefully once we're made aware, then we don't continue doing it despite knowing it.
Again, this goes back to the speck and the plank analogy from Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Of the idea of how often do I get so focused on a speck that I'm not even aware of the plank in my own eye. And so this is an email that came in from a wife that she says, I'm a recovering people pleaser and codependent. I came into marriage completely oblivious to these struggles, and I was blindsided early on how hard it was going to be. We've hung in there for a long time, and I believe it's had everything to do with our commitment to God. During that time, I've given my husband sex on a regular schedule, twice a week, sometimes less. Sex has been a duty. He knows that's all it's ever been. I've done the work. I've been through a 12-step program. I've forgiven my past self. The guilt and the shame are gone. But here's where I'm stuck. He thinks all our marriage and sex issues are my problem and have always been my problem. He's waiting for me to make the changes so we can finally have free sex. How do I recover? How do I get past the guarded sex, the pressure of meeting his needs, the fear of never being enough? How do I get past that pressure too? This is an all too common, in some ways, even sad email that's depicting a dynamic that is quite prevalent in marriages. Maybe not as clear on this subject as we're talking about today and she's emailing, but this is a pretty common occurrence in a lot of ways on a dynamic of I just do the things that I feel are my duty or my obligation or my commitment. And again, all of those within that nuance matter on how I frame this. There's a difference between I'm honoring a commitment versus this is my duty. And, even how I position myself with these wordings matter.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting thing is that she walked in to this situation and then got blindsided. And instead of leaving, she stayed.
What do you mean walked into this situation, meaning got married?
Walked into marriage, not knowing what to expect, not knowing some things about herself.
Yeah.
Discovering some things about herself. And to her credit, she stays. She's in it.
Yeah.
She's still there.
Well, and she's done some things, right? The 12-step program ideally was intended to work on and make her a better her.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I go with that?
Well, what's the motivation behind the 12-step program? Is it to make me a better her, or is it to make me a better her in his eyes? Right. And that's kind of where we're going to land.
No
episode,
idea.
Right.
No idea.
But one of the things that's interesting to start off the conversation on a deeper level is her statement of, I've given him sex twice a week on a regular schedule.
Well, I guess as the first thing that stood out to me when I say it's like totally a duty thing there, right? When I'm giving that to him, she's not experiencing it. It doesn't sound like there's any joy on her part.
The wording's not we've had sex or I've shown up for sex or I've offered up sex or I pursue sex. It's I've given him sex.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting dynamic in that. One is the idea of how she sees this and herself within it. The other is the twice a week. Like, where did that come from? Where was that standard set, I wonder?
Who knows?
I mean, was it
Who
him?
knows?
Was it him saying, my optimum number is twice a week? Or was it when I read the tea leaves of how my husband acts and reacts, twice a week seems to be a good rhythm, right? Because there's a lot of different factors that make up how we land on whatever our normal created pattern is.
Sure.
And so I'm wondering, how did that actually unfold to that number, to that goal? Because again, the giving him sex makes it seem to me like it's not her that's the primary motivator of that standard. She's not the one that's primarily set it. It's in response to something else.
Yeah, what she's reading of him or what he's potentially specifically
And it could
requested.
be because she doesn't know how it's landed the way it is.
Sure.
That it truly is, I'm just really good at reading the situation and then operating in a way I need to satisfy said situation as it pertains to something else, i.e. him.
Yeah.
And so this is a definition of a woman that's living a faithful wife role that's not necessarily defined by her.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, we don't know who's defining.
No,
that
we
piece.
don't. But drilling into that as a way to start this is where you start to uncover, what's my role in this? Because it's not just satisfying him.
Well, this is where we get into the meanings. We always talk about it's all about the meanings,
Right.
and so in all these years that she's been having sex with him, what meaning does sex have to her?
Yeah.
Right. Not what it means to him, but what meaning does sex have in her life, in her mind, in this relationship for her, not what it costs her, but what does it mean to you?
Right. And that's not a question she's asked in all of these questions of her email.
Yeah.
Right. She's asked it of, how do I get past guarded sex? How do I recover? How do I stop fearing that I'm not enough? And I'm going to answer that question real quick on how do I fear I'm not enough? Go ahead, though.
I mean, yeah, she can answer all those other things at some point, but I think you got to get to the meaning.
The deeper
first.
The deeper one is, what does this mean for me? Actually, yeah. Exactly. But the question of this is because this is one I hear a lot of, in the sense of
that I'm not enough.
I'm not enough. Mm-hmm. You're just not enough for me, or I feel like I'm not enough for you. And my professional and even personal view on that is, no one's enough for someone else ever. We constantly live in a world where enoughness is not met by things. Is there ever enough money? Is there ever enough sex? Is there ever enough stuff? Is there ever enough silence? Is there ever enough? No, there's not. That's part of the nature of who we are.
Wow, I disagree with you on that.
Let's go.
And so we're getting off track here, but it's kind of a both and.
Okay.
Yeah, ultimately, I'm not enough for you because I can't fulfill all your needs.
Exactly.
Right? I'm not meant to fulfill all of your needs.
That's why I think that's what I base my answer off of.
Right. But so in that regard, I think you're saying I'm not enough also equals that, yeah, I am. It's kind of
depends on who gets to answer it.
Yeah, yes, I am. You're just looking for something beyond what someone else can provide.
Right. Well, okay, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We're just saying it different ways.
Right, but I think what you're saying, if you're telling a client or someone you're never enough, then if their filter is stuck on that, you hear it as
a deficit.
They feel like, well, God, I'll never get there. If Corey's telling me I'm not enough, then I'm never going to get there. And I hear what you're saying. In a fallen world, no human being can ever be enough.
Right.
We can't. With the grace of God, we are.
On a spiritual level,
that's
what creates wholeness.
But as a human being, if you're looking for another human being to fill everything for you,
Not going to happen.
it's not going to happen. And I, as an individual, can't expect to ever do that for someone else.
And that's where therein lies the gap we have to learn to live within better by creating our own wholeness as much as we can, our own identity and solidness as much as we can, and then let that gap of, well, it's not what they're really wanting completely, but it's close enough. It's heading towards, but it's just that concept of when we create this dynamic of, I feel like I'm never enough for them. The for them is where the standard often comes from, which who says they should be a sole determinant or a major factor in the determining of your enoughness. When I tip the scale back, like you're describing, of no, I am working towards enoughness as I see I am in interacting in my world and playing the roles I want to play and feel like I need to fulfill. That changes the equation to where I'm not trying to now satisfy your standard. I'm creating a dynamic of how I'm contributing to a system, and I can live more whole in that, even in my brokenness.
Yeah.
Because then that dynamic isn't dictated by something outside of me on a human level, because I think it is dictated by something outside of me on a spiritual level. If I have a relationship with God through Christ, I'm called to more, and that's the standard I'm living towards. He then creates the wholeness. In my weakness, I'm strong. When you talk about the spiritual component, but on a human component, the elements of what I provide and offer are the standard that I live, and realizing its impact. And that gap that we have is where we now work in marriage, is where we now have the things to navigate and deal with, because that's what's existing in every relationship. And that's the blind spot we often don't see in the frustration I've got. Well, you constantly blah, 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 rather than wait. That's not about you needing to fulfill some sort of mold I want only. Mm-hmm. It's also, how are you fulfilling the mold you want in your life as you want it to be? And how am I adjusting to that? That's where the pressure and the crucible of marriage plays out most, is in that dynamic.
Yeah.
And so when she talks about this idea of what you just proposed, of the question of, okay, what if she actually was to go down the trail of, what does my sex life and my sexuality in my marriage actually mean to me? Let's pivot it back to that.
Yeah.
What do I do? How do I find that out? Because that's a better question, because it's got a bigger prospect of evolving and growing into. Because again, all of these kinds of questions, the best questions we can ask in a dynamic in marriage, aren't ones that have clear, concise answers most of the time. They actually are a direction that point me towards something that I'll discover things about me.
One step at a time.
And then I get a different way to start navigating. Oh, now that I know this about me, what do I need to do better? What could I do with this? What would that look like if I start actually living that way and bringing myself forward this way? And so, since she's never asked it, she needs to realize, what are some different things of how do I discover this? Mm-hmm. And there's 3 different ways that are often the most common, I think, that come to my mind, on 3 different threads.
Okay.
And one of them is just the noticing, not performing, not managing, but just noticing what's happening within her during sex, during intimate moments, during conversations. Because this is the same mechanism going on is the people pleaser in all areas of our life, most likely. And so if she's in a dynamic in sex or an intimate moment with her husband, what's going on in her? Where is she in this? Rather than taking her cue from him.
Yeah.
What is she feeling? What is she actually experiencing? Tuning into her body, tuning into her spirit, tuning into her emotions. And that's where it's hard to do, because we're often so hyper focused on the other. It's at the expense of self. And so it's learning, how do I shift this back to, okay, what does this actually feel like for me? What is this experience actually like for me? Do I
Mhm.
enjoy it in the moment as it's unfolding right now? Am I just tolerating it? Is this something that's actually painfully boring? Can I just do something else? All of those things are worth just noticing. And then when you notice, then you start to get curious. Okay, what's really going on?
All right.
What's that really pointing towards? What's really happening? Don't rush to judgment. Don't try to add meaning to it right away, but just get curious without some pressure of, now I got to do something with this. And instead it's just, okay, wait, what's really happening? Because this isn't about trying to fix it, because I don't really know what I'm trying to fix yet.
You're just analyzing. You're just looking, being curious.
Yeah.
Figuring out, if I don't know my meaning behind, what is it?
Right.
Right. Okay.
And then the last one is how getting better at, and you can do this, she can do this in areas beyond just their sex life. How does she get better at separating his need from her experience?
Okay. What does that look like?
So this is independent of, well, he needs this. This is why I'm doing it. Okay. What if this isn't something I really want to be doing right now? And that's a bigger driver than the fact that he needs this, because both can be true. I don't really like the word need, but I don't want to divert down that rabbit trail. But if what it is he's seeking isn't what I really want to be seeking in those moments, both of those things can be true. And so now how do I handle myself in that dynamic better, as while also separating from the fact that, yeah, he can want that. That's perfectly okay. I don't have to necessarily head towards that right now, because that's not best for me in this moment. That's not best in line with what I want in this moment. And maybe it comes around later. Maybe we have some better conversations about it, but then we start actually dealing with the dynamic better, because when he says the way she's framed it as he thinks it's all about me, well, that's because there's a dynamic at play of she's been the one willing to lead that charge to a degree too.
And meaning thinks it's all about me. Not that
That's
sex
why
is
we're having problems.
not that sex is all about her,
Right.
but the issues they have are all about her.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, because she'll be tempted to find her answers through his lens.
Yeah.
Because that's what pleasers do. I'm speaking as one. That's what we do. I'm very attuned that I recognize when someone's jiving with me pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I've just gotten better at not having to adjust so dramatically when I feel like they're not jiving with me. Because used to, I would adjust real quick because I wanted to make sure we were still in tune and okay.
Okay.
Rather than, I see you disagree. Let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
And that's taken a while to grow to that. But that's separate from their experience, their want, their interest, their opinion, and actually heading straight to it rather than trying to flow with it.
Yeah.
Because that's what people pleasers often do, is they flow with things in order to not have to make a wave, be an objection.
And then you end up disappointed because you're just going with everybody else's flow rather than really looking for what would fill your cup.
Right.
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 Okay.
Because you haven't asked the bigger questions of, what does this really mean to me? What would I really want? If I could set up a sexual encounter that truly is what I want,
what would it look like?
what would that look like?
Yeah.
And those are just questions that are worth the brain exploring, that aren't involving him yet, in the sense of, how do I just have an awareness of my own body to where I just want to have the time myself. I just want to settle myself. I just want to experience this. I just want to set it up this way. I want it to unfold this way. And I bring that forward, which then gives him a dynamic to have to bounce off of differently.
Yeah. 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 Because she wants freedom in sex, right?
He does.
He does. Okay, that was a wording of his.
Why? What will it take for us so that we can? And her wording, but I think the impetus is his, of, I just want you to be free in sex with me. Which my hunch is, when she is quote unquote more free in sex, it's going to be disruptive to him.
Oh, it'll freak him out.
Initially, yes. It could be very, very exciting at first, but then as the spouse starts to become more bold and she's more in tune and holding on to herself better, it's going to be a little disrupting, if not a lot disrupting to him in time. Because then you'll start to hear the overreactions that can happen often from somebody that's used to getting their way, quote unquote. And I'm being exaggerative with that statement. But if you're used to getting your way, when someone starts pushing back, you start, why does it have to always be on your terms? Because we overreact.
Right. Like twice it was on my terms.
Right. But we overreact to things because I'm not used to that pushback and I don't handle myself. And I'm blind to the fact that I have created a dynamic where I get my way.
Yeah. Well, in all reality, it doesn't sound like he's quote unquote been getting his way. Because if it's his way, he has a spouse that's free and has been the whole time, right? And he knows that she's doing this out of duty, that it's obligation, right? So neither of them is really getting anything the way they want.
So then let's turn to his side real quick. What's his role in this then, in this dynamic? Because again, everybody's complicit in the dynamic. I mean, every system is designed to get the results it gets exactly.
Well, he's been taking it.
He's been accepting it. I want you to be free in sex, but I still continually gladly receive or accept and participate in non-free, quote unquote, sex.
Yeah. I mean, if that's not what you want, then why you accepting it?
She threw in a line of it's duty sex and he knows it. And it's been received by him.
Uh-huh.
So I want you, babe, I really do want you to be free in sex. I want this to be about you. I want you to engage in it with what you want. And then when you show up and don't, and I accept it, I am complicit in this.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, wait a second. How do I handle what I say I'm wanting while at the same time doing the opposite of it?
Do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely making a statement to her.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't even realize it probably.
Right.
These are the things that we do that we don't even realize the barriers that we're building within our relationship.
Yeah, because there's a dilemma then you start to face of you keep accepting what's offered while wanting her to fix it, or you stop accepting it and you start to deal with what's actually possibly going on between you and what your part in it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how you start to really face what needs to be faced, because that's what's actually present. Because a lot of times, this is just a good little phrase to add to this dynamic. I think a lot of times it's in the world of couplehood, we get caught up in this idea of we're fighting about what's missing, right? He's upset, he's frustrated, he's longing for this free sex. But what the real problem is actually what's present, which is this, I have been accepting what I say I don't want all these years. That's what's the data is showing is actually present.
And then she's the one responsible for him not really getting what he wants.
And she has been playing this role of I've been giving something to him out of the hopes that will solve this equation, rather than what's actually present is possibly, we don't know this for sure, but possibly what's present is she doesn't even really know what she wants for herself.
Well, sure. And so all this time, if he's been accepting this, but he wants her to be free, how is he even going to know what that looks like? Does he actually know or what that would look like? He only knows the duty version of her.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. Is he actually even going to want the other version once he gets it?
That's where we talked about earlier of how this will be disrupting. This will throw things off balance. But this is where you have to ask yourself the tougher question of, if I want a spouse that truly is choosing this, how is there room for choosing it on their terms and what it looks like for them when it won't always line up to what it is I think that is the quote unquote better? But how do I know what's better until I get conflict that comes back at me to help me refine what better actually looks like, and then refine who are the people involved that create it better?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the work that is actually landing on both of them, but they don't see it that way. It's always been so much easier to, well, babe, it's just your problem.
Mm-hmm.
You got to figure it out. I want you to be open to me. I want you to be free with me. Well, how am I doing the things that shut it down? Because the brain will pick up on, oh, he'll gobble this up. So I can just do this, and that's enough. That'll stave it off. You talked about early on in our marriage. I heard the word meter. The meter would be running from some clients after, well after we were on a growth trajectory. But the first stages of our marriage, I would have had a meter running that, oh, I know it's been a while since we've had sex, so I probably should, because you're just a whole lot more enjoyable to be around when we've had sex.
I mean, there is that, right? There's definitely that within marriage
it's a factor.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's a factor. But it's realizing those are the things that actually need to be addressed, not the, well, you're just never free. Because we're not, that's the wrong question. That's the wrong target, because it's not the real problem. The real problem is, what's the culpability in the dynamic that I'm frustrated about that's mine? And until I settle myself down enough to ask myself better questions and actually see where I might be blind, I'll continue that cycle. Because she could show up, own herself in a different way, start trying to be more free, and he shuts it down, and now the shoe just shifted to the other foot.
Well, because he gets scared of it. Oh my gosh, what just happened?
Or he doesn't recognize the dynamic shift and starts pulling back and starts rejecting because this is a common thing too, of I've been the one just kind of playing the role for you. Now, when I start doing things that I want, you start rejecting me. And it's like, well, yeah, that's because the system doesn't know how to handle that yet. So oftentimes it just switches poles, if you will, until both people get involved in the game more honestly and self-confrontingly, not other confrontingly. Because whenever I create the scenario where it's all about you, you've got to blah, 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 blah. That's not the way a system works. I mean, I sent out an email based on the last 2 episodes we did on the infidelity thread.
Yeah.
And the email was just on it's always something, the affair is not the disaster. It's what reveals the disaster that was likely already going on some level. And disaster is an exaggerative word, but it was kind of for a shock value. And I kind of went the easy. I tried to be a little sly with the wording, and it maybe should have been a little more tactful. I'll own that. But there's an element of, there's already a dynamic in play in marriage that needs to be revealed. And the more I spend all my energy, you've got to handle your side of it, and then we'll be free. We'll be okay. We'll solve everything. The more I don't take a honest stance of, what's my role in this too? Because I haven't spoke up about what I really care about. I haven't dealt with what I really need to address. I haven't whatever in my part in the equation. And when I don't do that and I keep it on you, the system's going to continue to do what the system does. Both people won't evolve.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. It takes going through things like this in a marriage relationship to then understand how to fix it. I think it's so common and just human to not recognize, for instance, from the husband's standpoint, me accepting this duty sex isn't cool. It's not good. And
it's part of my problem.
It's part of my problem. It's not encouraging her to grow. It's not encouraging our relationship to grow. And it's just an interesting relationship dynamic that we have to grow up through. And it's crazy that sometimes that can go on for so long and you don't see it. And then as you do grow up and understand really more how we feed off of each other in a relationship, and people really open their eyes to that, it's an amazing, oh my gosh, I was doing that for so long.
Right.
I'm so sorry.
Right. Right.
I'm so sorry. Hopefully they get to that point, right?
Yeah.
And it seems so obvious once you've walked through it and you've opened your eyes and you get to the other
Because we
side.
can see the things and connect the dots in the past. You
Yeah.
can't necessarily do it in the real time. And that's the
Yeah.
scariest part of this,
Yeah.
because it feels like initially I'm moving away from my marriage.
When
in
not.
reality, all I'm doing is stabilizing myself within my marriage,
Mhm.
which could in fact feel like I'm doing that. I'm moving away. But feeling like it and actually doing it aren't the same thing.
No.
Withdrawing, distancing, avoiding, that's moving away, which is actually kind of what pleasers do too. It's just a more sophisticated way.
Yeah.
I just avoid some things by just dealing with the moment, and it's not really me moving into it. And so that's what this whole thing is pushing towards for both of them. And when they can start to see it, then they get a chance to really face the forced choice dilemmas that come within marriage, because these are things that are built into marriage, of these dilemmas because of a commitment and a covenant we've made. That's what she's talked about, has kept us through it, is our covenant with God, our covenant with each other. Fantastic. Now it's using that mechanism to develop a self within that, not just an us. It's a developing of self. We got it backwards. And when you can do it that way, see it that this marriage is working on me more than I work on it. It's like when she owns this differently, it's going to force his hand a little bit differently. And you see how he responds. Then you have a chance to face what you really need to be facing all along anyway. And so if this has landed with you and the nation in any way, if you see yourself in this kind of dynamic and you were to actually stop performing and start showing up differently, we'd love to know. What would that look like for you? Not what your spouse needs to do, what you would want to do. What would that look like for you? Send us that email or call us and let us know. feedback@sexymarriageradio.com or 214-702-9565. So however you took some time out to spend with us today, thanks.